Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something today that I think is going to resonate with a lot of you.
Yeah, this is something that I think everyone has some experience with.
Exactly, we're talking about alcohol. And we're going really deep on this one. We've got some recent research and findings, pulled a lot from this YouTube channel, Life Hacks After 50. Really interesting stuff.
I watched some of those videos too, really fascinating.
Yeah. The goal here is to pull out those most crucial insights, things that maybe even surprise you about how alcohol really affects your body and your brain.
Yeah, I think we take it for granted sometimes.
Absolutely. So let's start with this. Even 2 glasses of wine a week, just two,
Mm.
can change the physical structure of your brain.
Whoa.
Yeah. It reduces the thickness of some really important areas that we use for decision making, for memory.
That's a little scary. I mean, 2 glasses of wine a week, that's not a lot.
Right. So that's what we're looking at today. When you have that drink, what's really happening inside
Right, we kind of take it for granted. We go out, we have a few drinks, it's social, it's
and
fun,
normalized. Yeah.
but we don't always think about what's actually going on, you know? It's not just a drink.
Yeah.
It's setting off this whole chain reaction in your body.
Totally.
It really is. I mean, your body recognizes alcohol as a poison. Your liver is like, what is this? And jumps right into action trying to process it.
So what happens? What does the liver do?
Well, first, it converts the alcohol into this thing called acetaldehyde,
Oh,
which, and this is kind of crazy, is actually more toxic to your body than the alcohol itself.
wait, so it makes it worse.
It does,
Yeah.
at least for a little while.
That seems kind of counterproductive.
Right. It's like, oh, you drank a poison. Let me make it even more poisons for you.
Right, and then what?
Then the liver's got to break that down further into acetate. That's less harmful and something the body can get rid of more easily.
So the liver's working overtime here.
Oh, yeah, it's a busy little organ.
Yeah.
And all of this processing, it has these immediate consequences, especially for your brain.
Right, because alcohol, it's a neurotoxin, right?
It is. I mean, it can damage those nerve cells.
Yeah.
And it really messes with the communication pathways in your brain. Like, throws a wrench in the whole system,
And I guess some areas of the brain are more sensitive to alcohol than others.
for sure. One of the main ones is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that's responsible for all that higher level thinking.
So like planning and decision making.
Exactly. Judgment, keeping your impulses in check. You know, that voice of reason.
The one that tells you maybe you shouldn't have that next drink.
Exactly. Or the one that tells you, hey, you are definitely not okay to drive right now.
Right. Even though you might feel totally fine.
Right. That's the alcohol talking. And the problem is, these effects, they're not just temporary.
What do you mean?
Well, the research is showing us that even if you're just a moderate drinker, consistently having alcohol can change the structure of your brain.
Really? How so?
Studies are showing that moderate drinkers, they can have up to a 1.5% reduction in their overall brain volume.
1.5%. I mean, that doesn't sound like a huge amount.
Yeah, it might not sound like a lot, but think about it. This is your brain, the control center for everything you do.
That's true. It's kind of like a little bit of erosion.
Exactly. It's like a slow but steady chipping away at your mental hard drive.
Yeah.
And it's especially concerning when you consider how these small changes can build up over time.
Right, over years and years.
Exactly. And then you add in the fact that everyone processes alcohol a bit differently.
Because of genetics.
Right. Like, did you know about 40% of people of East Asian descent, they have this genetic variation?
No, tell me more about that.
Well, it makes them deficient in an enzyme that's really important for breaking down that acetaldehyde. Remember, the more toxic stuff.
Yeah.
So for them, it hangs around in their system for longer.
And that's why some people get really flushed and red after just one drink.
Exactly. They might also feel nauseous or just generally unwell. They're basically extra sensitive to alcohol's negative effects.
Wow, I didn't realize that was genetic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And genetics also play a role in your risk for developing more serious problems with alcohol, like alcohol use disorder.
Oh, right. So your genes can influence whether you're more likely to become dependent on alcohol.
Exactly. It's estimated that genetics account for about half of your risk. So it's not a guarantee, but it does mean some people have a greater biological predisposition.
So it really varies from person to person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's something we need to keep in mind, especially when we talk about things like changing drinking patterns in younger adults.
Right. There was something in the research about that, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's this concerning trend showing an increase in alcohol use disorders, especially in young adults, like between 18 and 25.
Wow, that's really young.
It is. And it's a problem because that's such a critical period for brain development. If you're drinking heavily during those years, it can actually permanently alter the structure and function of your brain.
It's like setting yourself up for problems down the line.
Exactly. And it makes you think about things like, the whole college drinking culture.
Right, it's so normalized.
It is. And it might be contributing to some of these longer-term issues with alcohol. And it's not just the brain itself that's affected. Your gut health also takes a big hit, which then has a ripple effect on your brain.
Oh yeah, the gut-brain connection. We hear about that all the time these days.
It's a big deal. And alcohol can really mess with that delicate balance of microorganisms in your gut, the gut microbiome.
So what happens exactly?
Well, studies have shown that heavy drinkers, they can have up to 50% less diversity in their gut bacteria compared to people who don't drink.
50%. That's huge.
It is. And what's really fascinating is how this affects your brain. Your gut and your brain are constantly talking to each other through this thing called the gut-brain axis.
It's like a two-way communication system.
Exactly. And when you damage the lining of your gut, which alcohol can do, it can become more permeable, leaky gut.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So basically, toxins and inflammatory molecules, they can leak out of your gut and into your bloodstream.
And that causes inflammation throughout the body.
Exactly, including your brain.
So
Which might explain why you feel so foggy and anxious the day after drinking.
it's not just dehydration.
It's part of it. But that inflammation plays a big role too. And over time, this chronic inflammation can contribute to things like mood changes, anxiety, even cognitive decline.
Wow, so it's like this chain reaction. You have a drink, it affects your liver, then your brain, then your gut, and then back to your brain again.
It's all connected.
Okay, I gotta ask about this. For years, I've heard that red wine is good for you, good for your heart. Is there any truth to that?
It's a common belief. People point to resveratrol, an antioxidant found in red grapes. But the thing is, the concentration of resveratrol in a typical glass of red wine, it's way too low to have any real benefit for your heart.
So you'd have to drink like gallons of red wine to get enough.
Pretty much. More importantly, the latest research is showing that even moderate drinking, including red wine, it actually increases your risk of certain cancers.
Really? By how much?
Studies have shown that for every drink you have per day, your risk goes up by about 5 to 6%.
Whoa, so the heart benefits are basically a myth, but the cancer risk is very real.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And there's even more to it than that.
Like what?
Well, there was this recent study in Nature Communications. They found that even moderate drinkers, they had more iron accumulation in their brains compared to non-drinkers.
Iron in the brain, that sounds bad.
It's not good. It's been linked to cognitive decline.
So every time we learn something new about alcohol, it seems like there's another downside.
Yeah, it's a bit sobering, isn't it?
It is. But this information is so important to have so we can make informed decisions about our health.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge. When you understand how alcohol affects your sleep, your brain structure, your cellular health, you can start making choices that align with your well-being.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. The good news is your body is pretty amazing, and it can recover. Studies have shown that brain volume can actually increase after just a few months of cutting back on alcohol or quitting altogether.
So it's not necessarily permanent damage?
Nope. Your brain has a remarkable ability to bounce back.
That's really good to know. So I guess the takeaway here is when it comes to alcohol, less is more.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of both the immediate and the long-term effects of your choices.
So let's recap. We've covered a lot today. We talked about how your body processes alcohol as a toxin, how it disrupts communication in your brain, how it can shrink your brain volume, and how it messes with your gut health, which then affects your brain.
Right. And we busted some myths about red wine and talked about some new research showing how even moderate drinking can be risky.
Exactly. And the main point, you have the power to make informed decisions about your alcohol consumption based on this knowledge.
It all comes down to choice.
So here's a final thought for you all. How will this information change your choices going forward? Will it make you think differently about your drinking habits? Maybe even explore some other lifestyle choices that could impact your brain health?
It's worth considering.
It really is. Okay, that's it for our deep dive into alcohol. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic.
Yeah.